Hello and welcome to Stork'd, the podcast in which we explore the many ways to build and define family. This is Julia, and I'm so excited to release season 3 of the podcast. I cannot believe that we're already at season 3, and I am so excited about the guests that we have in this season. Each season is unique and special, and I am just thrilled to share this one with you. For those of you who are new to the podcast, let me give you a little update about what it is, what you can expect to hear. And then for those of you who have been following my journey along the past number of years, let me tell you a little bit about what's happening with me because it's changed quite a bit since I started this podcast. So for those of you who are new to Stork'd, I started this podcast in March of 2020. What had happened was I had been spending a lot of time thinking about how to build a family and what I wanted for a family. And when I say quite a bit of time, I mean years and years and years in the making. And one of the culminating experiences that I had was a trip to Colombia in March of 2020 with my uncle and my cousin to visit the orphanage from which she was adopted. And it was, you guys, it was like the most remarkable experience I have ever witnessed. And then we come home and of course, COVID hits and we're in heavy lockdown, and all the thinking that I had been doing, all the planning, all the efforts that I had put into building a family over the past number of years started coming to a head. And part of my personality is just this like investigatory need to query everyone I know when I'm thinking through a decision. You might call it indecisive. I like to call it, sort of maybe a little bit more of a detective personality, more of a experiential, like get a lot of input personality. And so I was talking to friends and family and had been for some time about their experiences. And, as I was exploring single parenthood or I was exploring step parenting or I was exploring adoption, I would have those conversations and they were so fabulous that I just started to press record. And that is what this podcast is all about. It's about exploring the many ways that others have chosen to build and define family as I myself choose to build and define my family. So that was almost 2 years ago, over a year and a half ago. And since then, now we have 3 seasons of Stork'd with so many rich and nuanced stories from incredible guests. And my life has sort of evolved in parallel, in tandem. Since launching Stork'd, I have now welcomed a son into my family. He was conceived through a sperm donor, and I am technically, I guess, a single mom by choice, although that's a term I wrestle with quite a bit. And so in season 1, I was still in the exploratory phase. I was just beginning the treatment process. In season 2, I was in the middle of the treatment process. And then ultimately, partway through the recordings, I discovered that I was pregnant. In season 3, I recorded as much as I could while pregnant before going on maternity leave. And now here I am 3 months after being on leave and starting to step into my new life as a parent. And my sister asked me recently, she said, how does it feel to have had your dreams come true? And I really liked that framework because it has been for some time a dream of mine to have a family. And while I was open to it being a biological family or not a biological family, it was really important to me to parent children in some way. And so the answer to that is it feels incredible. This parenting thing is the most delicious, exquisite, joyful experience I've ever had. And I'm just remarkably happy. That said, it's really uncomfortable for me to say that out loud because for so long I have felt and identified as sort of the outsider looking in on friends and family members who have kids and saying, oh, I really want that. I was the single person or the person riding solo at all the family events. And now to be on the other side, it feels really good, but it also feels just a little awkward. Like it's hard to celebrate this, knowing that so many people in my life are currently challenged with their family lives. They are facing infertility or fertility challenges, or they're facing complicated relationships with siblings and parents. And that it's a very raw, very emotional place to be in our family lives. It's such an important component of who we are, our families, that it's really emotional. And so to be, jumping for joy and say, I'm great, it just feels so awkward, especially when for so many years I felt not great about it, frankly. And I was just reflecting to a friend of mine that holidays in particular got to be increasingly more triggering. Every holiday season felt just increasingly horrible. And it culminated with a Christmas 2 Christmases ago. where my sister brought home her new baby, and I was just a wretched human to her and everyone around me because I was in so much pain having wanted a family of my own for so long. And here we have this perfect little cherub, and it just was really raw and really hurt. So, now I'm stepping into this new chapter of my life, and it so far has been a wonderful chapter. It has been exceedingly challenging in some ways. Parenting is no joke, and doing it solo is a lot. I am finding that self-care is really challenging, and we're going to actually hear in season 3 from a guest who talks about self-care and parenting and family building quite extensively. And so is finding caregivers and making sure that I can balance my work life with my family life. And that's been really challenging. So on the self-care angle, I learned the hard way that I have to take care of myself when 3 weeks into having my son, I had him in a little baby Bjorn carrier on the front of my chest. And I did what I thought was going to be just a very light, very gentle walk around the neighborhood, very short. And what happened was I ended up running into a neighbor. And as we were chit-chatting, I collapsed. I fainted, sort of did a huge timber and fell right back on my back. I was super lucky that I didn't fall forward and therefore hurt or harm my child. And I was also lucky that I didn't hit my head. Luckily, also, this neighbor is a mom of 4, and she knew what to do, and she was really wonderful and helpful. But it was incredibly embarrassing and a huge wake-up call that I needed to be taking better care of myself in order to take better care of my son. On the balance front, I can't tell you how many Zoom calls this child has participated in or in-person meetings because I just can't quite get my act together or get the care schedule figured out. And so this poor child should have his own business cards almost because he's been to so many meetings. And so when people say, what is single parenting like? Do you recommend it? I think if you're listening to my story and you want validation that it's the right path for you, it could very well be. And my dearest hope, my deepest hope is that this podcast will validate any decision for anyone who's thinking about their family lives, whether it's the choice to be a single parent or to adopt or to step into step parenting or to choose not to have kids or to choose to walk away from family members that are harmful or to repair relationships with family members that had previously been seen as toxic. All of those are valid and valuable choices one can make around family building. I certainly can't say to do or not do single parenthood, although I will say it is not for everyone. And I really encourage you to think carefully about what choices make sense for you. One of the through lines, and I love the word through line, that actually came up in another episode as well. One of the through lines for Stork'd is this theory, there are no wrong choices, that every family building journey is valid and totally appropriate, and that everyone deserves a family. But that the people who are most content with their family building journeys are those who have spent time identifying their values, identifying who you are at a core level, who are you, and figuring out your why. And a friend of mine actually very recently was holding my son, and she said to me, oh gosh, he was worth the 10 months, referring of course to a pregnancy because I was lucky to carry him myself. And I said, 10 months? What are you talking about? This has been years in the making. In fact, I'm reminded of an Eleanor Roosevelt quote. And in that quote, she said, I am who I am today because of the choices I made yesterday. And I would say I am who I am today because of the choices I made many years ago. And that includes the choices to exit relationships that weren't working for me, the choices to rebound from relationships where I was the one being walked away from. And for me, if you're curious about my journey to determine that single parenthood was the right choice for me, it involved a tremendous amount of introspection and a determination that my soul's purpose was to parent. And how did I do that? I did that with a lot of therapy. I had at various points over the course of the past 6 or 7 years, 2 different life coaches. I have a good friend who is a purpose coach, and we spent a couple of sessions in reflection doing purpose coaching, where I found my why, where I determined that my soul's purpose was in fact to parent. I spent a lot of time in various healing sessions, acupuncture, Reiki, you name it. I went on a deep spiritual journey, which culminated with me praying at the top of a mountain with a Peruvian shaman who had been struck by lightning not once, but twice. And I prayed for him to help me open my heart and open my life and frankly, open my womb to having a child. And it had a lot of difficult conversations with friends and family. I actually created a board of advisors of friends whom I asked to hold me accountable for a certain timeline and certain goals, including, when to get pregnant and helping me pick out a sperm donor. And then, of course, there's the fertility journey itself, which was long and drawn out and complicated and involved changing doctors and going through 2 surgeries and ultimately, picking a sperm donor, trying to do at-home insemination, and then ultimately doing it through IUI in a medical facility. And I'm forever grateful for the doctor who helped me get pregnant. So this was not a small project. This was not something where I just woke up one day and said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the single parenting thing. It took a lot of effort and determination and reflection to make this choice to step into this style of parenting. And one of the hardest parts, frankly, was somewhere along the way, I met a wonderful gentleman who has kids of his own and was well on my way down this path. And we had to have some conversations around, is this something you want to participate in? And, do you want to end the relationship so I can go do my thing? And he chose to stick around for now and explore a parallel path. Let's see what the relationship looks like. And let's see where your fertility journey takes you. And let me tell you, those conversations have been really awkward where he's saying, yeah, my girlfriend's pregnant and it's not my baby. Or I'm saying, yeah, there's a guy in my life, but this is not his. I'm doing this on my own. So the reason I'm saying that is because even as I can reflect and say I am ridiculously happy right now, I also acknowledge that it took a tremendous amount of work and a lot of hardship to get here, a lot of hard stuff, some icky, murky, difficult stuff. But there have been some really beautiful moments where things have gone so well as I step into parenthood. And one of the things that's really interesting is my relationship to my community has changed quite a bit. So previously, my neighborhood, which I've lived in for about 12 years, is just full of young families, and it has tons of parks and places to take kids, and just like the stroller mafia almost, like these stroller gangs that roam the street with their Up a Baby Strollers, which is a Boston-based company. And previously, I found that very triggering. I would pass a stroller and I'd peek inside and I'd look at this like angelic little face and I'd go, well, maybe one day, maybe one day that'll be me. And when I was 8.5 months pregnant, I walked by 2 women who were clearly members of the stroller mafia. And one of them looked at me and said, you're almost here. You're going to be one of us soon. And it was such a powerful moment that really marked this transition from the wanting to the having. I mean, I still get chills when I think about it. And I think, how was somebody so kind as to know that that was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment? Later, I went to a park which I had visited every day for the past 12 years, mostly with my aging French bulldog who really could only make it the half block to this little park. And this park is to die for. It's so cute. It's got a little teeny tiny playground with toys, shared push toys for the little toddlers. And then it's got a bigger playground for the bigger kids. And it has a fountain and a basketball court. And it's tiny and it's precious. And it's about a half a block away from me. And I would go there every day with my dog and I would pass these moms. And sometimes I would cry, frankly, because they had this thing that I wanted so badly. I'm getting teary right now. So I'd pass these people every day and say, oh, maybe one day it'll get to be me. And then I was sitting in the park when my son was about, God, I'm really tearing up. When my son was about 6 weeks old, and I was talking to a woman and, I said, this is the park where we're going to come. This is the park that I've been wanting to be in for so long. And she said, well, how many times have you come? I said, well, this is my first time. And I just started bawling. This is the time that I got to bring my son to the park that I've wanted to go to for 12 years. And it was such a powerful moment of saying, oh God, this dream that I've had for so long is finally a reality. And yet now when I walk around, and I'll be honest, sometimes I walk, sometimes I strut because I'm so excited to be wearing this wonderful baby or pushing this wonderful stroller with this wonderful baby in it. Sometimes I see women do exactly what I did, which is look inside and smile at me. And you can just see in their eyes that pain and that yearning. And I'm like, oh God, I used to be there. I used to feel those same things. And sometimes it's just a smile, right? Somebody has a family already or doesn't want one or could care less. And they're just smiling because they're nice people as they pass by, or they're just smiling because, I don't know, maybe they're thinking about something else. Maybe they're thinking about the coffee they're about to have. But every once in a while, there's somebody I see look at me in a certain way, and I recognize that look And I want to say, it'll be okay. Whatever happens, it'll be okay. So when I think about those moments, when I think about that transition from where I was season 2 and season 1 and to where I am now, there's this, I want to call him like an illustrator, poet, spiritual guru. I don't even know what you want to call him. He does these poems that he illustrates. His name is Charlie Mackesy. And he has a book, I highly recommend it, called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. I may have gotten that a little bit backwards. But anyway, there are 4 characters, a boy, a mole, a fox, and a horse. And through this journey, it's almost like a modern Winnie the Pooh. They have these gorgeous illustrated like vignettes that are just so inspiring and helpful. And there's one about a storm. And if you look at the picture, it's a very dark swath of like navy blue with a rainbow. And under the rainbow is the horse with the boy on it, and the mole and the fox are nearby. And the boy says, "This storm is making me tired," said the boy. And in response, "Storms get tired too," said the horse. "So hold on." And that to me has been like the visual emblem of my journey over these many years. A dear friend gave me his book. And in fact, I spent the weeks leading up to delivery reading that book to my belly. And then the days after delivery when I was in the hospital and it was just the 2 of us and the occasional nurse would come in or my parents would come visit. But in between times, I would read that. And I was just like bawling the whole time as I was reading this book to him, to my son. But specifically because I had shared that image and I had talked about it with a friend as to how meaningful it was to me. When I was in labor, before I went to the hospital, like 3 a.m, this friend called to check in on me. And I said, "Oh God, this sucks. I'm not really feeling very comfortable. I don't know if I'm in labor or not. Could this be it?" I felt a lot of discomfort. And my friend said, "Don't forget, storms get tired too. This storm is going to pass." And that was true for my labor. And it was true for the years of planning to have a child. It is important to note that I'm recording this episode just at that turning point in my life, just at that crossroads where I am headed back to work. And that means that my daily life with my child, with my son, is changing quite a bit. And this is the time when post-pregnancy, your body's adrenaline starts to go, it starts to wane, and other hormones start to change and drop and dip. And so as I step into this new element of my life, as I step back into real life, I know that as a result of that, there will be some other storms that I have to weather. This storm that has passed is not going to be the only one. It's going to be one of many in a journey. And that therefore, this is not a Hallmark ending. As much as I love and adore Hallmark movies, I really don't believe that things end when you get the baby or you fall in love. These things are so frequently highlighted as the end goal. I would caution everyone, including myself, to listen to this episode and say, okay, there's this culmination. Everything she wanted has come together and now there's a happily ever after. Yes, I am very happy. And yes, I want to celebrate that happiness. But I also recognize that this is the beginning. This is one important point, one very high point in a lifelong journey. And I will also add that I had a tremendous amount of support from friends and family. In fact, one of the things that I had that not everyone gets to enjoy is I had a maternity leave living at my parents' house for 3 months where I was fully taken care of. So for anyone who's thinking about becoming a single mom by choice, or generally thinking about tackling a pretty difficult journey, I encourage you to consider and reflect on what resources you have available to you and figure out how to marshal those, because while not everyone's resources are going to look like mine, you may not choose life coaching and therapy and all the various things I described, and you may not be in a position to or have the desire to live with your parents for some period of time. Having some level of support in whatever it is that you choose to do is really important. And so I feel very grateful to the people who have come together to support me, including those listeners for this podcast. So gosh, that is an update on my journey. What can you expect in season 3? You guys, we have such good episodes in season 3. We talk about self-care. We talk about healing from polycystic ovarian syndrome. We talk about surprise pregnancies. We talk about one of the most incredible, actually 2 episodes have the most incredible gifts you can ever imagine and just the altruism of people is tremendous. We end up talking about nature versus nurture because we have a 2-part episode where there was an embryo donation, and so they are raising kids that are biologically related to one another. We talk about, and this happens in quite a few of the episodes, a shift in perspective from I can't and I will never have this thing that I want to, oh my God, this is a possibility if I just look at it through a different lens and through a different angle. And of course, there's a lot of grief. It's a lot of grief in the process of redirecting our life goals and re-examining what it is that we want. So I hope you like this season. I hope you love these episodes. I love making them. And I especially love hearing from people who reach out and say, this episode I found really useful for whatever it is that I'm going through, or would you care to share a story that looks like this? And several of the episodes that we featured in season 2 and season 3 come from audience members who raise their hand and say, I want to share my journey. And several come from people who say, I don't want to share my journey, but I'd love to hear about this. But more importantly, there are times when I think, oh gosh, why am I doing this? And then I hear from somebody that an episode has helped them reframe a decision or think through options or validate a choice or just, feel less alone. And that to me is the most incredible thing ever. So I hope you find this useful. And if you do, share it with a friend. Maybe they'll find it useful too. Or if you feel really generous, go ahead and sign up for the newsletter and leave a review on Apple. It really does help. And thank you. Here's season 3.
Thank you for listening to Stork'd with your host, Julia Carroll. This podcast is changing the conversation around the ways people define and create family. If you like what you hear, please support us by sharing with friends and following on Instagram at Stork'd_podcast. We also always appreciate it when you rate and review us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information, visit storkedpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter. That's STORKD podcast.com.
Hello, Stork'd family. Did you know that the FDA does not require tampon brands to provide a full list of ingredients on their boxes? Yeah, seriously. That's why so many of the big names use the disclaimer, may contain, before they list all these synthetic ingredients like rayon, polyester, and fragrance. It's time you meet Lola. They're always up front, even on the back of the box. Founded by women with sky-high standards who think that what they put on and in our bodies matters. Lola offers period, sexual wellness, and vaginal health essentials made with high-quality, natural ingredients. Gynecologist-approved, clean products that are by your side during every stage of your life. Find exactly what you need at mylola.com, Amazon, Walmart, and select retailers nationwide.